I need to tell you about the night I destroyed my family, not with violence or rage, but with something far more devastating. The truth. My name is Marcus Chen, and for 28 years I lived as the family disappointment. The son who never quite measured up, the one they stopped bragging about at cocktail parties. While my sister Victoria collected achievements like trading cards, I collected their sighs of resignation. But that Thanksgiving dinner, that perfectly orchestrated evening of passive aggression and thinly veiled contempt, that's when everything changed. That's when I finally understood why I never stood a chance. And that's when I decided they needed to know that I knew. Let me take you back to the beginning, because this story doesn't start at that dinner table. It starts 28 years earlier, in a hospital room where my mother made a choice that would poison everything that came after. I grew up in Westchester County, New York. Old money neighborhood, the kind where everyone's lawn looks like it was trimmed with nail scissors, and the neighbors smile at you with their mouths, but not their eyes. Our house was a colonial revival with white columns that my father said represented strength and tradition. Looking back, I think they represented something else entirely. Facade, a beautiful lie. Victoria is 3 years older than me. From my earliest memories, she was already perfect. Piano recitals at 5 where she never missed a note. Honor roll every semester, captain of the debate team, early acceptance to Princeton, then Harvard Law, then a position at one of Manhattan's most prestigious firms. Her life was a straight line up, drawn with a ruler. Mine was more of a scribble. I was the kid who got B's when Victoria got A's, who made junior varsity when Victoria made varsity, who went to a state school when Victoria went Ivy League, who became a high school English teacher when Victoria became a lawyer dating a surgeon. Every Sunday dinner was a performance review I hadn't studied for. My mother, Catherine Chen, former debutante turned philanthropist, would pour wine and casually mention Victoria's latest triumph. Did you hear Victoria is being considered for junior partner? Did you see Victoria's interview in the Times? Victoria just closed a case worth $14 million. And then, always the pivot to me. That slight shift in her voice, like a key change from major to minor. And Marcus, how are your students? Still enjoying the teaching? The word enjoying always had air quotes around it, even when she didn't use her fingers. My father, Richard Chen, was worse because he didn't even pretend. He was a cardiovascular surgeon, the kind who played golf with hospital administrators and owned 3 vacation properties. To him, success was quantifiable. Salary, title, square footage, the school your kids got into. By his metrics, I was a rounding error. He stopped asking about my life around the time I turned 25. Just stopped. At family gatherings, he'd talk to Victoria about her cases, about the partners at her firm, about her boyfriend Marcus. Yes, that's right, her boyfriend had my name. Which my father found endlessly amusing because at least one Marcus in the family was successful. I smiled through it. Year after year, I smiled through it. I told myself I didn't care about their approval. I told myself I loved teaching, loved my small apartment in Queens, loved my quiet life. I told myself a lot of things. The truth was, I cared desperately, that caring was eating me alive from the inside out. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, because that's when the first crack appeared. I was at my apartment, grading essays on The Great Gatsby, when my phone rang. It was my mother's sister, my Aunt Jean. We weren't close. She'd moved to Oregon 15 years ago, and we maybe spoke twice a year. Marcus, she said, and her voice had a quality I'd never heard before. Urgent, almost frightened. I need to talk to you about something about your parents and Victoria. My stomach dropped. I thought someone was sick. I thought she was about to tell me Victoria had cancer, or my father's heart was failing. What's wrong? I asked. Not on the phone, she said. Can you come to Oregon? Or I can fly to New York. This needs to be face to face. Aunt Jean, you're scaring me. What is this about? It was a long pause. It's about why they've always treated you differently. It's about something that happened when you were born. Something I should have told you years ago, but I was afraid. I'm still afraid, but you deserve to know. My hands were shaking. The red pen I'd been holding left a streak across a student's essay. Tell me now, I said. She hesitated. Then there was another baby, Marcus, your twin sister. She died during delivery, and your mother, she God, this is so hard to say, Your mother blamed you. She's blamed you your entire life. The apartment went silent, except for the sound of my breathing. Outside, I could hear traffic, sirens, the normal sounds of the city, but inside my head, it was completely quiet. The kind of quiet that comes before an explosion. What are you talking about? I finally managed. Jean's voice cracked. Your mother had twins, you and a girl. There were complications during delivery. The doctors had to choose Marcus. They had to choose which baby to save, and they chose you because you were in more distress. Your sister, your twin, she didn't make it. And your mother has never forgiven you for surviving. I couldn't speak, couldn't think. 28 years of cold shoulders and comparisons and casual cruelty suddenly had an origin story. But Jean wasn't finished. There's more. Victoria, she paused. Victoria isn't your biological sister. The floor seemed to tilt. What? Your parents couldn't have more children after you were born. Something about the trauma of the delivery. So 2 years later, they adopted. They adopted Victoria. But they never told her, and they raised her as the child they lost. The daughter they actually wanted. Marcus, they've been trying to replace your dead twin sister with Victoria your entire life, and punishing you for being the one who survived. I hung up. Don't remember deciding to hang up. But suddenly the phone was on the table, and I was staring at my reflection in the dark TV screen. A ghost looking at a ghost. For 3 days, I didn't call her back. I didn't tell anyone. Went to work, taught my classes about symbolism and the American dream, came home, and sat in the dark. I thought about every birthday where Victoria got the bigger celebration. Every Christmas, where her gifts were more thoughtful, more expensive. Or every graduation, every achievement, every moment where I was the footnote to her headline. I thought about the time I won a teaching award, and my father said, "That's nice, but Victoria just made partner." I thought about my mother introducing me to her friends. "This is my son Marcus. He teaches high school." Then, in a completely different tone, "And this is Victoria. She's a lawyer at Whitmore and Associates." The emphasis was always on the word lawyer, never on the word son. It all made sense now. The emotional distance, the impossible standards, the way they looked at me sometimes, like I was a stranger who'd wandered into their family photos, because in their minds, I had taken something from them, the daughter they wanted. And no amount of achievement could ever make up for that original sin of surviving. By Thursday evening, Thanksgiving Eve, I'd made a decision. I was going to tell them I knew, not to hurt them, or maybe yes, to hurt them, but more than that, to free myself. To finally understand why I'd spent 3 decades chasing approval that was never going to come. I drove to Westchester on Thanksgiving morning with evidence Jean had sent me. Copies of adoption papers she'd kept, hospital records from my birth. A letter my mother had written to Jean years ago in a moment of weakness, confessing everything. The house looked the same as always, perfect, the kind of perfect that requires constant maintenance. Dead leaves swept away the moment they fell. Seasonal wreath on the door, professionally arranged. Through the window, I could see my mother in the kitchen wearing an apron that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, holding the envelope of documents. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I felt calm, the kind of calm that comes after you've already decided to burn everything down. When I walked in, Victoria was already there. She hugged me, and for just a moment, I wondered if I should tell her first. Privately, but no. She'd been part of this, even unknowingly. She'd accepted the role of golden child without question. She'd watched them treat me like a burden and never once asked why. Dinner was the usual performance. My mother had outdone herself. Turkey, 3 kinds of stuffing, roasted vegetables arranged like art. The dining room looked like a magazine spread. My father opened a bottle of wine that cost more than I made in a week. We sat down. My father at the head of the table, my mother to his right, Victoria to his left, me at the far end, the distant satellite in their solar system. The interrogation began before we'd finished passing dishes. "So Marcus," my father said, "still teaching?" "Yes," I said, "still teaching?" Victoria jumped in, probably trying to help. "Marcus loves teaching, Dad. Not everyone measures success in money." My father smiled. "Of course. Though I imagine the retirement benefits aren't quite what they are in law or medicine." My mother added her contribution. We're just concerned about your future, sweetheart. You're almost 30. Don't you think about stability? About building something?" "I have built something," I said. "I have a career I love." My father actually laughed. Career. Teaching high school English for $42,000 a year is a hobby, not a career. Victoria, to her credit, looked uncomfortable. "Dad, come on." I got my mother was warming up now. She'd had 2 glasses of wine. "We just want you to be proud of yourself, Marcus." The way Victoria is proud of herself. She's accomplished so much. Here it comes, I thought. The comparison. On schedule. Like clockwork. "Victoria just made junior partner," she continued. At 31, it's the youngest in her firm's history. She's been featured in 3 different legal journals this year. She's dating a cardiothoracic surgeon. She bought a condo in Tribeca. My father nodded along. That's the kind of trajectory we'd hoped for both our children. Both. That word. Such a small word to contain such a massive lie. But Victoria, she's really shown what's possible when you apply yourself. When you aim high, she's the pride of this family. My mother reached over and squeezed Victoria's hand. Then she looked at me. "But you," she said, and there was something in her voice, something I'd heard a million times before, but never had a name for. "But you've always been content with less. It's content with adequate. And I suppose that's fine, if it makes you happy. But sometimes I wish you'd shown just a fraction of Victoria's drive." The table went quiet. Even Victoria looked down at her plate. My father sipped his wine. "You know, son, it's not too late. You could go back to school, get an MBA. Do something with your life besides babysitting teenagers." The word babysitting hung in the air like smoke. I picked up my wine glass, took a long drink, set it down carefully. "Can I tell you all a story?" I said. "Marcus," my mother said, "we're trying to have a nice dinner. It's Thanksgiving," I continued. "The day we're supposed to be grateful, to reflect on what we have. On family. So let me tell you a story about family." My father leaned back in his chair. "This should be good." 28 years ago, I said, something happened in a delivery room at Westchester Medical Center. Something that changed everything. Something you never told me. My mother's face went white. I watched the color drain from her cheeks like water down a sink. "Marcus," she whispered. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the envelope, set it on the table between the butter dish and the cranberry sauce. "I had a twin," I said. "A sister. She died during delivery. And you've blamed me for surviving every day since." Victoria looked confused. "What are you talking about?" I opened the envelope, pulled out the hospital records. The death certificate for baby girl Chen. Died November 22nd, 2 hours after birth. My mother stood up so fast her chair fell backward. "Where did you get that?" she demanded. "Who gave you that?" I kept going. My entire life, I've wondered why nothing I did was good enough. Why Victoria was the golden child and I was the afterthought. Why you looked at me sometimes like you wished I was someone else. The answer, I said, sliding the documents across the table toward Victoria, is because I am someone else. I'm the son who lived when the daughter you wanted died. "Marcus, stop," my father said, but his voice had no authority now. "And Victoria," I turned to my sister, my not-quite-sister. "You're adopted. They never told you. They adopted you when you were 6 months old and raised you as the replacement for the twin who died, the daughter they actually wanted." Victoria picked up the adoption papers. I watched her eyes scan the lines, watched her face change as she understood. "Mom," she said quietly, "is this true?" My mother was crying now, silently, tears running down her face, smearing her mascara. She didn't answer. My father stood. "You have no right," he said. "No right to bring this up. No right to ruin this family." "Ruin it," I said, and I was surprised by how calm my voice was. "I'm not ruining anything. I'm revealing it." So ruin was already there, under the surface. In every disappointed look, every comparison, every time you treated me like I was defective. I turned to my mother. "You blamed a baby for surviving. You spent 28 years punishing a child for not dying. Do you understand how sick that is?" She collapsed into her chair, put her face in her hands. "I didn't mean to," she sobbed. "I didn't mean to blame you. But every time I looked at you, all I could see was her. Your sister, the daughter I lost. I couldn't separate the two. And so you adopted Victoria," I said, "to replace her." to have the daughter you wanted, when you raised her to be perfect, because she was supposed to be the child who lived. Victoria was staring at the papers like they were written in a language she didn't understand. She looked up at my mother. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. Her voice was small, childlike. "Why didn't you tell me I was adopted?" My mother couldn't speak, just shook her head. My father answered instead. "We wanted you to feel like you were ours, completely ours. Didn't want you to feel different." "But I am different," Victoria said. "This explains everything. Why I don't look like anyone in the family. Why I always felt like I had to be perfect. Like if I made one mistake you'd, what, send me back? Is that why you pushed me so hard?" "No," my mother managed. "We pushed you because we loved you." "You pushed her," I said, "because she was the daughter you chose. The daughter who didn't kill her twin just by being born?" The silence that followed was complete. No one ate. No one moved. The turkey sat in the center of the table, cooling, a monument to a family dinner that would never be finished. She gathered the documents carefully, like they were fragile. "I need to leave," she said. "I need to think about this." Victoria, my father, started. But she was already walking toward the door. She paused, turned back. "Marcus," she said, "I'm sorry I never knew. I never understood why they treated you that way. I should have asked. I should have stood up for you." "What?" "It's not your fault," I told her. "You were just a kid trying to survive, too." She nodded. Left. I stood up, too. My mother grabbed my arm. "Please," she said. "Please don't leave like this. Let me explain." I looked down at her. This woman who gave me life and then spent that life resenting me for it. "What's there to explain?" I asked. "You've explained it every day for 28 years, in every action, every word, every time you chose her over me." "That's not fair," my father said. "Fair," I repeated. "You want to talk to me about fair? You want to talk to me about the fairness of being born alongside your own death sentence? Spending your entire childhood wondering why your parents looked at you like you were a mistake?" "You were never a mistake," my mother whispered. "Then why did you treat me like one?" She had no answer. Neither did my father. I walked to the door, stopped, turned back one last time. "I forgive you," I said. "Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve to stop carrying your guilt." Then I left. Walked out of that perfect house with its perfect columns and its perfect facade, hiding all that rot underneath. I sat in my car for a long time, watching the lights in the windows, watching my parents' shadows moving behind the curtains. I thought about all the Thanksgivings, all the Christmases, all the birthdays, where I'd felt like a guest in my own family, and I realized something. I'd been waiting my whole life for them to choose me, to see me, to love me the way they loved Victoria. But they couldn't. Not because of anything I'd done or failed to do, but because every time they looked at me, they saw a ghost. They saw the daughter they lost. And no amount of achievement, no amount of trying could ever change that. My phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. "Can we talk tomorrow? Just us?" I texted back. "Yes." Then I drove home. Back to my small apartment in Queens. Back to my simple life. My adequate life. But here's the thing. Life didn't feel small anymore. It felt like mine. Finally, completely mine. The next day, Friday, Victoria met me at a coffee shop in Manhattan. She looked different, still put together, still professional, but something had shifted. The armor was cracked. We sat down. She had a folder with her, more documents. "I couldn't sleep," she said. "I spent all night researching, looking through old photos, calling, my God, I don't even know what to call them now, calling Catherine and Richard." "They're still your parents," I said. "Biology doesn't erase that." She smiled sadly. "That's more generous than I feel right now. They lied to me, Marcus. For 31 years, they lied. They lied to both of us," I said. "Just different lies." She opened the folder. Inside were more papers, birth certificates, adoption records, medical files. "I found my biological mother," she said. Her name was Sarah Morrison. She was 19 when she had me. Single, working 2 jobs. She put me up for adoption because she wanted me to have a better life. "Did you contact her?" "Not yet. I don't know if I should. But I found her on Facebook. Married, has 2 other now. Married, has 2 other kids. My half-siblings." Her hands were shaking. "I always wondered why I felt like I had to be perfect," she continued. My failure felt like death. Now I know. I was literally replacing a dead child. Everything I achieved, every trophy, every award, it was all trying to be worthy of the daughter they actually wanted. I reached across the table, took her hand. "You are worthy," I said. "You've always been worthy. Their damage isn't your fault." She started crying. Not dramatic crying. Just tears, silent and steady. "I participated," she said, "in how they treated you. I accepted the favoritism. I let them put me on a pedestal while you, God, Marcus, I'm so sorry. You were a kid," I said again. "And then you were an adult who didn't know the full story. You can't apologize for something you didn't understand." But I could have asked. I could have wondered why our parents treated their own son like a stranger. We sat there for a long time. Two people who thought they were siblings discovering they were something else. Not quite strangers. Not quite family. Something in between that didn't have a name yet. "What happens now?" she finally asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "I just know I can't go back to how it was. I can't pretend anymore." "Me either," she said. Over the next few weeks, the family fractured in slow motion. Victoria moved out of her condo and into a smaller place. She took a leave of absence from her firm. She said she needed time to figure out who she was when she was trying to be perfect. My parents called me 17 times. I didn't answer. They sent emails. Long, rambling explanations that really weren't explanations at all. Just excuses. Well, just pain trying to justify itself. My mother's emails were the hardest to read. She talked about the delivery, about holding my twin sister for those 2 hours she lived, about naming her Grace. Her name had been Grace. She wrote about the depression that followed, about looking at me and feeling nothing. Nothing but resentment and grief so deep it had its own gravity. She wrote that she knew it was wrong, had always known. But by the time she understood what she'd done, years had passed and the pattern was set. I was the son who reminded her of death. Victoria was the daughter who made her forget. "I'm sorry," she wrote. "I know that's not enough. I know sorry doesn't give you back your childhood, but I am sorry. I was broken, Marcus. I'm still broken, and I broke you in the process." I didn't respond. Not to her. Not to my father. Not yet. Christmas came and went. Spent it with some teacher friends, eating Chinese food and watching movies. Victoria texted me a photo of herself on a beach in Mexico. She'd gone alone. First vacation she'd ever taken that wasn't about networking or achievement. In January, Victoria contacted her biological mother. She told me about it over dinner. Talked for 3 hours, she said. She cried. She told me about the day she gave me up. How she held me and promised she'd define me again someday when she could give me the life I deserved. And she's been following me. For years, she knew about the law firm, about my cases. She was proud of me from a distance. She never reached out because she didn't want to disrupt my life. Will you see her again? I'm going to Philadelphia next weekend. She lives there. She wants me to meet my half-siblings, 2 brothers, teenagers. Victoria smiled, and it was the first genuine smile I'd seen on her face in months. "I have brothers," she said, like she couldn't quite believe it. "You have me too," I reminded her. "If you want," she'll reached across the table, squeezed my hand. "You're the only one who's been honest with me," she said. "The only one who didn't pretend. Even when it destroyed everything, you told me the truth." "Sometimes the truth is the only thing worth saving," I said. In February, I finally called my mother. She answered on the first ring. "Marcus," she said, and her voice was raw, worn down. "Hi, Mom." I could hear her crying, trying not to, failing. "I've been in therapy," she said, 4 times a week, trying to understand why I did what I did, trying to figure out how to fix this. "Can you fix it?" I asked. Not accusatory, just curious. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I want to try, if you'll let me." We met the next week, at a neutral location, a coffee shop in Greenwich Village. She looked smaller than I remembered, older. Grief had carved new lines in her face. She brought a photo album, opened it carefully. "This is Grace," she said. Inside was a single photo, tiny baby, red-faced, wrapped in a hospital blanket. She had a small tuft of dark hair, eyes closed. She looked like she was sleeping. "She looks like you," my mother said. "Like both of you. Twins." I stared at the photo, the sister I never knew, the ghost that had haunted my whole life. "I blamed you," my mother said. "For 30 years, I blamed you for surviving when she died. And that was evil. That was unforgivable. You were an innocent baby and I turned you into a villain in my own story. She closed the album. I can't take back those years, she continued. I can't undo the damage. But I want you to know that it was never about you. It was never because you weren't good enough or smart enough or successful enough. It was because I was broken. Instead of getting help, I broke you too. I sat there, holding my coffee, watching my mother fall apart in public. Part of me wanted to forgive her right then, to tell her it was okay, to rebuild the relationship. But another part of me, the part that had carried 30 years of rejection, wasn't ready. I need time, I told her. I need to figure out who I am without your disappointment defining me. She nodded. I understand. And I need you to tell Victoria the truth, I added, about why you pushed her so hard, about the pressure. She deserves to hear it from you. I will, she said. We finished our coffee. She walked me to the subway. Thank you, she said, for meeting me, for not shutting me out completely. I'm not doing it for you, I said. I'm doing it for me, so I don't want to spend the rest of my life angry. She hugged me. I let her, but I didn't hug back. March brought rain and a different kind of clarity. Victoria introduced me to her biological family. Her mother, Sarah, was warm and funny and treated me like I mattered. Her brothers, 16 and 14, were obsessed with video games and asked me if I could help them with their English homework. It was surreal. Sitting in Sarah's living room in Philadelphia, eating homemade lasagna, watching Victoria laugh with her brothers. This could have been her life. This warmth, this simplicity, this unconditional acceptance. But it wasn't. She'd been raised in a museum, trained to be an exhibit. Perfect, untouchable, alone. You know what's weird? Victoria said on the drive back to New York. I spent my whole life trying to be extraordinary. All I wanted deep down was to be ordinary, to be loved for just existing. That's all any of us want, I said. You think we can have that? With them? With Catherine and Richard? I don't know, I admitted, but I think we can have it with each other. She reached over, squeezed my shoulder. You're a good brother, she said. You're a good sister. And just like that, we were. Not because of blood, not because of law, because we chose it. April, spring, the city shaking off winter. My father called me, asked if we could talk. I said yes. We met at his office, corner suite overlooking Central Park. Very him. Very what success was supposed to look like. He didn't waste time on small talk. I failed you, he said, as a father, as a man. I measured everything in my life by the wrong metrics. Money, status, achievement, and I tried to force you into that same mold. He looked out the window at the park. At the expensive view, your mother, she had the grief, the trauma of losing Grace. That was her excuse. But me, I had no excuse. I knew what I was doing. I knew I was treating you like you didn't matter. And I did it anyway, because you didn't fit my definition of success. He turned back to me. But you know what? You're the successful one. You do work that matters. You impact kids' lives. You chose meaning over money. And I'm the one who's empty. Are you dying? I asked. Is this a deathbed confession? He laughed. Bitter. No, I'm not dying. But I am alone. Your mother and I, we've been sleeping in separate rooms since Thanksgiving. Victoria won't return my calls. And you, my own son, I haven't seen you in 5 months. Sometimes consequences take time to arrive, I said. He nodded. Deserved. All of it deserved. But I want to try, Marcus. I want to be better. I don't know if I can be a good father at this point, but I'd like to try to be a decent one. I looked at this man, a stranger who gave me half my DNA and none of his understanding. What does that look like? I asked. Being decent? He thought about it, showing up, listening, respecting your choices even when they're not mine, apologizing when I'm wrong, celebrating your victories instead of comparing them to someone else's. That's a pretty good start, I said. Will you let me try? I considered it, the anger, the hurt, the decades of feeling invisible. Could I let that go? Did I even want to? But then I thought about the alternative, about carrying that weight forever, about becoming as hard and empty as he was. Yes, I said. You can try. The summer passed. Slowly, carefully, My parents went to couples therapy, individual therapy. They read books about grief and trauma and how to apologize to your children. They tried. It wasn't perfect. My mother still sometimes looked at me with sadness. Our father still sometimes fell into old patterns of comparison. But they caught themselves, apologized, tried again. Victoria and I grew closer. We started a tradition. Every Sunday, we'd meet for brunch. Just the two of us. No parents, no pressure. Just two people who'd survived the same storm, learning to rebuild in the aftermath. She told me about her therapy sessions, about realizing she'd been living someone else's dream, about quitting the law firm and starting over as a legal aid attorney. Less money, and more meaning, more her. I told her about my students, about the kid who'd written me a letter saying I was the only teacher who ever believed in him. About finding purpose in the small moments. It's the incremental changes, the quiet victories. We were both learning the same lesson. That worth isn't measured in achievements or salaries or parental approval. It's measured in authenticity, in kindness, showing up for yourself and the people you love. August, my birthday. 31 years since the delivery that changed everything. My mother called. Asked if she could take me to dinner. Not the whole family, just her and me. We went to a small Italian place in the village, the kind with checkered tablecloths and wine in water glasses. Not fancy, not perfect, just real. She'd brought something. A box. Wrapped carefully. This was going to be Grace's, she said. If she'd lived, I've been holding on to it for 31 years. But I think it's time to let it go. Inside was a silver rattle, engraved with the name Grace Chen and her birth date. I wanted you to have it, my mother said, because you're both my children, you and Grace. You're the son who lived, and she's the daughter who didn't. But you're both mine, and I loved her, Marcus. But I love you too. I always did. I just couldn't feel it through the grief. She was crying again, but different this time. Not the tears of guilt, the tears of release. I'm sorry, she said. For all of it. For every moment you felt unloved. For every comparison. For making you feel like you had to apologize for existing. I held the rattle. This object meant for a child who never got to use it. A sister I never got to know. Tell me about her, I said. About those 2 hours. So she did. She told me about holding Grace. About how small she was. How perfect. About singing to her. About making promises she knew she couldn't keep. About watching her slip away. She told me about the moment the doctors told her I was going to survive. About the relief and the rage all tangled together. About holding me and feeling nothing but emptiness. Should have gotten help, she said. Right then, but I thought I could handle it. I thought time would heal it. I thought adopting Victoria would fix it. I was wrong about all of it. You were hurt, I said. Hurt people. That's generous of you, it's the truth. We finished dinner, walked through the village as the sun set. My mother linked her arm through mine, a gesture she'd done with Victoria 1,000 times, but never with me. Can I tell you something? She asked. Yes. I'm proud of you, of the man you've become, of your kindness, of your strength. You survived me, Marcus. Not everyone could have. I survived, I agreed, but I'm tired of just surviving. I want to live. Then live, she said. You have my permission. Not that you need it, but you have it anyway. It's October now. A year since that Thanksgiving dinner. A year since I burned down the lie we'd all been living. Things aren't perfect, probably never will be. My parents are still works in progress. Victoria is still figuring out who she is when she's not performing, and me. I'm still teaching, still living in Queens, still making $42,000 a year. But I'm not ashamed anymore. I'm not waiting for approval that will never come. I'm not measuring myself against someone else's yardstick. I found my dead twin sister's name in a box. I found out my sister wasn't my sister by blood. I found out I'd been blamed my entire life for the crime of surviving. And you know what else I found? Freedom. Freedom from the weight of expectations I was never meant to carry. Freedom from the pressure to be someone I wasn't. Freedom from the myth that love has to be earned through achievement. I talk to Grace sometimes. My twin. The sister I never knew. I tell her about my life. About teaching. About Victoria. About our parents learning, slowly, to be better. I tell her I'm sorry she didn't get to live. That it's not fair one of us made it, and one of us didn't, that I wish she could have been here to see all of this. But I also tell her thank you, because her death, as tragic as it was, gave me something. It gave me the truth. The truth, painful as it was, set me free. Victoria and I are planning Thanksgiving this year. At my apartment, no turkey, no performance. Just pizza and honesty and the family we've chosen to be. My parents asked if they could come. We said maybe, said we'd think about it. We said that forgiveness is a process, not an event. And that's where we are now, in the messy middle, not broken, not fixed, just honest. I teach my students about the Great Gatsby, about the green light, about reaching for dreams that might be illusions, about the tragedy of living in the past. But I also teach them this, that sometimes the truth costs everything, that sometimes love is complicated and painful and imperfect, that sometimes survival is the bravest thing you can do, and that sometimes when your family says you're not the pride of the house, the most revolutionary act is to be proud of yourself anyway. My name is Marcus Chen. I'm 31 years old. I'm a high school English teacher. I survived my twin sister's death. I survived my parents' grief. I survived 3 decades of feeling like I wasn't enough, and now I'm finally starting to live. This is my story. The truth they hid for years, the revelation that destroyed a family and rebuilt it as something more honest. Was it worth it? Burning it all down? Every single day, I wake up and the answer is yes.